Chief Risk Officer at Standard Bank South Africa, who joins us this afternoon for an analysis of this announcement. A very good afternoon to you, Thabani, and thank you so much for your time. I want to start with an important point that the governor lamented during the Q&A, saying that this question around the interest rate cut cycle coming up, when is it going to happen? And he said it's not about time, or it's not time dependent, but rather on the state of affairs. And he says as long as we see issues of inflation like we've seen and a non-sustainable decline as we've seen, the status quo will remain. Your thoughts on that component of the interest rate cuts outlook?
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to you and your listeners. I think he's right in the sense that, of course, the decision for the monetary policy is always determined by the inflation rate. Of course, we are starting to see good signs that the inflation will come down. Particularly, we saw food inflation starting to come better than our expectations. And even the Reserve Bank's forecast is suggesting an improved inflation outlook, which is really good. Of course, I think the real warning that he's giving us is that if you remember last year, we all anticipated a reduction in inflation earlier in the year. Then we saw the war that took place, and unfortunately, the inflation increased. And so as you're sort of speculating around these things, one is to be cautious that we don't ignore the fact that there's so many other factors that can move things. In Standard Bank in general, we've had a view that we think that inflation should moderate a bit this year, and we should start getting into a bit of an interest rate cycle cutting that's coming in either at the end of H1 or the beginning of the second half of this year. And that's our view. But of course, as I say, there's all these risks. We've got elections, we've got all these things that can shift the scale on us.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. And he also did mention the volatility in the rand that could also have an impact on what the trajectory would look like.